Welcome back, everybody. With me right now is McCue, who's the founder and CEO of Flipboard, which makes a mobile magazine for publishers and now users where you can basically aggregate and publish your own collections of stories or any content from around the web. And part of that is their business is basically selling ads for publishers. So it's something we use. It's something a lot of our competitors use. It's proven to be a great vehicle for us in a lot of ways. But this is happening in the middle of mobile traffic, right? And like 35% of our traffic right now is on mobile, and a lot of other publishers have seen the same shifts. This is like happening within a period of a year or two, so it's hugely dramatic. So I'm just going to start out by what's going on. What are your stats? I mean, you launched a new product that let anyone make their own magazine and publish it through Flipboard. It's added a few more million users, I think 53 million users. What's happening right now? I mean, how's that working for you?
By the way, thank you so much for inviting me. It's great to
Sure.
be here. And I was walking the floor earlier, and it's just so exciting to be in the midst of all of these entrepreneurs. How many of you are an entrepreneur, by the way? All right, I love it. Yeah, it's an amazing time to be an entrepreneur because media in particular, which is the space that we're involved in, is everything about it is changing. And since we launched 2.0, to answer your question, we're now at about 56 million readers. We added 6 million in just the month since we launched 2.0. We're growing at just a record pace. We're adding new partners all the time, doing more in depth with those partners. Advertising is going incredibly well. We have just incredible advertisers, everyone from Land Rover to Gucci on Flipboard. And it's just been an amazing ride.
Cool. And so one of the questions I'm getting a lot right now when we write about Flipboard is, what if I'm just a user? What if I'm just like making my own magazine and it's generating a lot of flips, getting a lot of readers on it? I'm making money for the publishers and for Flipboard. What about me? What about my aggregation work?
Yeah, a lot of people have asked us that. We have out of our the folks that we've shipped 2.0 to, which is our iOS user base. They've created almost 1 million magazines now, and magazines that you can imagine about anything that you care about, like everything. Like I just saw, there's one called City Planners Gazette. It's got 22,000 readers, and it's basically everything about planning a city. Land use, environmental, things.
The new SimCity.
Yeah,
for that.
Yeah, exactly. So there are people who are creating these magazines. And some of them are original content creators. They're bloggers as well. And of course, they can have their ads in there and they're monetizing that way. Other times, they are consultants, they're researchers, they're teachers, and it's just helping them in their job. Our primary focus is monetizing for publishers. The people who are creating the content, that's what we care about right now. The people who are actually creating the content, how can we help them monetize? And in the future, we'll be looking at ways to help the super pro curator be able to monetize as well, especially to the extent that they start creating original content.
So walk me through sort of what's happening on the revenue side, right? Like, because the issue for any publisher is that you started out with print, where you had close to a monopoly, and in some markets at least, and then you go onto the web where you're competing against everybody, and it's much harder to monetize. Google does a much better job of that than most publishers, obviously, all publishers. And then you go onto mobile, and I think when we've talked about it before, it's from like. What was your term?
Well, you go from dollars in print to dimes in web to pennies in mobile. And that is a devastating situation and ultimately will not sustain high quality content or journalism.
So, I mean, why is that, and what do you think is actually going to change about that?
Well, there's a number of reasons why this is. I think a lot of it has to do with how content is packaged, how it's presented, and then ultimately how it's monetized. And the combination of those things, the very nature of what makes a media business is changing and fundamentally because of social and because of mobile. Those two forces are changing all of those things. And so when you look at how content is published in print, or how they monetize, they tap into these huge brand dollars. The 80–90% of the advertising spend has yet to move to digital, and most of that spend is in brand, emotional, beautiful advertisements that get you to desire a product or a brand. And so, if you're Burberry or you're Gucci, you're not going to run banner ads on the web. You're not going to run a Google keyword ad. You're going to run a beautiful full-page ad in a print publication like Vogue or outdoor television. And so, to get brand advertising dollars to move to digital, you've got to create an environment and a package and a presentation that allows those emotional brand messages to come across. And so far, that hasn't really existed, and that's what we wanted to try to do with Flipboard, was enable that. So, banner ads and keyword ads are good for harvesting the demand that you create with these big brand advertisements, but they're not good at getting you to decide that you should wear a trench coat, for example.
So I'm not privy to the business side of TechCrunch's setup with Flipboard, but I assume it's like you have what 50% of the revenue that you're splitting with publishers. Is that right? Or
we do a rev split. Yeah, we have a rev share.
It depends on the type of the publisher and what they're bringing in, or
right. It depends on whether we're selling the advertising or they're selling the advertising, and we try to basically let our publishers lead the way and decide what they want to do with their advertising opportunities on Flipboard. Sometimes they want to sell all of it. Sometimes they want us to sell all of it. Sometimes they want to sell, us to sell some of it. We have a lot of advertisers who come to us and they want to buy, across Flipboard, and then what we do is match make with, a variety of our publishing partners and bring them revenue. So we'll call them up and say, hey, by the way, we have an order for $500,000 for you. And they're just like, yeah, okay, that's awesome.
And in terms of this is happening across your platform, but iOS is your home base right now. What's happening with Android?
Android has been really striking in terms of how quickly it's been growing. So we don't break out our iOS or Android numbers, but it is growing very, very fast, and it's very much a meaningful part of our installed base at this point.
And when are you going to launch the Android version?
For 2.0, soon, very, very, very soon. We're putting the finishing touches on it.
So
it's a little harder
to
build. Well, we'll see.
Okay.
I got to make sure it's right. It's much harder to QA. There's way more devices you have to make it work on. And it's got to be high quality. So it'll ship as soon as it's ready.
So let's go back to monetization. One of the really interesting things that everyone in the media watched happen was the experience that News Corp had with The Daily, right? They invested millions of dollars into it, hired great journalists, and they closed it. What's your analysis of that situation?
And provide that context and perspective, perhaps maybe on a weekly basis. So, for example, the TechCrunch Weekly is I read that magazine all the time on Flipboard. And it gives me, as I should, exactly. And it gives me a perspective of what's happened over the week. And that's the kind of thing that I would pay for longer form, more thoughtful articles that aren't just sort of real-time stream.
So on that note, when can we start charging for the TechCrunch Weekly?
I think that's something that we want to build into our platform. You've seen us do this with the New York Times, where you can actually subscribe, or you can authenticate right now to the New York Times. And we would like to have our platform ultimately set up so that, as a publisher, you can decide what content should be free, what content should be paid for. And I fundamentally believe people will pay for great content.
So let's say you were running The Daily instead of running Flipboard.
Yeah.
And you had experimented with the way they were doing it, the daily download.
Yeah.
And you saw some good usage and a lot of interest, but it wasn't making the money you wanted to. What would you have changed? Like, what's the specific thing you would have done for that?
Well, it's so hard.
This is a question all of us publishers are having to ask. Regardless of how Flipboard works for us, we still have a mobile website, we have apps we're experimenting with, and it's something we have to think about all the time. So
I think I don't want to play armchair quarterback with Rupert Murdoch, but I think I admire the courage and thinking that went into The Daily. I think what we've learned as an industry here is that you've got to get the packaging right. People will pay for some content, but you should also have some content be free to be part of the sort of daily buzz of what's happening.
So you would have done like a weekly edition?
I would have thought about perhaps doing a weekly edition. I would have made the daily edition free and charged for the weekly edition. I mean, again, who knows whether that would have worked, but I certainly would have experimented with that. One of the other challenges is as soon as you put a price tag on something, you really hinder what you can do from an advertising point of view. So I think, there's a lot that's, in fact, the #1 cost for a newspaper today is, it's not journalists, it's not the photographers, it's gasoline, it's fuel. I mean, that is just an astounding fact. It's not even the paper, it's the fuel. The second cost for a newspaper is the trucks and the truck maintenance. Go drive by the New York Times on the interstate and you'll see this massive facility with all these trucks.
What was that study from?
That actually was from somebody who's an advisor of mine who is very inside the newspaper industry, and gave me those stats. And I was amazed when I heard it. And way down the list is the cost for journalism. And you've got ink, you've got production facilities, manufacturing, paper, et cetera. So imagine if you could take a publication and factor out all those costs, right? Which is kind of what the Daily wanted to do. And focus all of your energy on the high-quality journalism. But you still have to come up with some monetization, obviously, and I think that can be done with primarily a blend of advertising, mostly, and then subscriptions.
Well, I mean, so
for the
what would you
high-end
recommend
content.
for, based on the usage you're seeing for people, you have all these high-end advertisers. How are you going to try to stick a paywall on top of that, or are you going to say, like, do the old blogger move where you can pay to remove the ads?
No,
like that.
I don't think
how do you balance that? Because nobody's even close to getting that right.
Yeah, I think there's still lots of experimentation to happen here, but what we want to try to do is build a platform where that experimentation can happen. And as a publisher, you should be able to try to have some content be free, some content be paid for on a weekly basis or monthly basis. Maybe it's a one-off basis. Perhaps an article can be paid for if it's a particularly great, in-depth, long-form piece. So I think that there's a lot of experimentation to be had, but I do think it'll be a mix. And I think advertising, coming back to that piece, is probably going to play a dominant role in a lot of this, because it's very hard to create very high quality premium content, and I think that advertising needs to support that, and so if we can figure out a way to help advertising support it at the level of print, instead of dollars to dimes to pennies, but instead focus on that dollars arena.
But this is a general issue in mobile, right? The only thing that's really making a ton of money right now mostly is mobile gaming.
Yeah.
And I don't think you're getting into that business.
No.
So,
mobile,
I mean, what else do you think is, how are ads going to really start breaking out for mobile?
You have to change, you got to change a couple of things. One is the nature of how those ads look and how they work, how they're delivered. A banner ad at the bottom of a game is a terrible experience. My daughter plays these games. She's 7 years old. And she taps on an ad for some diet soda or something. It's terrible. That's not advertising that's ever going to work, and that's why we're down in the pennies now in terms of the value of those ads. What will work, though, are full-page, beautiful, emotional ads that come from the brand advertising budget, which is 8 times larger than the digital advertising budget from these marketers. And I think if you can do that, I think
Is this going to require in-house creative on your side? I was just talking with Jim Benkoff from Vox, and they're starting to do that as well. Is that something that you're, BuzzFeed is, doing a lot more partnership ads, they call it.
Content marketing.
What's your take on all of that?
I think that is a major trend. We won't do that ourselves, but we'll certainly give people the platform to experiment with content marketing attached to brands. So for example, a good example of something that we did recently was with Levi's. They ran a huge campaign across Flipboard. It's still running now. And basically, they curated a magazine on Flipboard that has all these products and Instagram pictures and articles that they wrote, reviews of their products, and products you can actually buy right there in that curated magazine, almost like a sort of interactive catalog. So I think that this is a big deal. We've seen a lot of our readers actually just subscribe to the Levi's magazine on their own. And
Really?
I think, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, people love to browse through catalogs. I mean, it's cool. I mean, it doesn't work for every product.
Well,
but
how is the Etsy integration working out? I mean, you guys
Yeah.
did an integration with Etsy as part of your 2.0 launch.
yeah. Yeah,
where,
Etsy.
it's their it's
Yeah.
their homemade catalog.
Yeah, Etsy has been doing phenomenally well on Flipboard. We have people who, my favorite thing about Etsy is that people have taken the Etsy library and they've made these magazines about Etsy products, right? So if you like garden gnomes, like somebody actually made a magazine of like every garden gnome you could buy on Etsy. It's totally wild. So, there's all these really interesting curations that have happened across these various products. And I think that's a big deal, and that's where marketers want to participate,
So,
right,
I mean,
in that
are you
curation
seeing
process.
any serious affiliate revenue from that? Is that something you think will matter to your business?
No, we're focused more on the advertising revenue as a company. I think advertising and premium content really is where at the heart of Flipboard's revenue model. But for us, what we want to do is enable companies like Levi's to build a presence on Flipboard, and then have people buying product in that, in that magazine, and then advertise across our publishing partners to bring traffic to that magazine.
Okay. I mean, so in the sense that your own product is enabling content marketing.
Yeah,
You are
in
a
that
part of
sense,
that.
yeah, exactly. In that sense, you can create the content and then you can package it up in different ways and deliver it as a magazine on Flipboard.
Okay. And in terms of content creation, you're in the early stages of considering how, non-publishers can make money out of this.
Yeah.
What's your take on Subtle and Medium and the other self-publishing platforms that are trying to pay people to write? Or get to that stage? I mean, are they competition for you? Or are they just going to be another thing to plug into Flipboard?
I hope it will be something we can plug into Flipboard. I think Medium and Subtle are both really, really powerful platforms. I like the idea of enabling and fostering and promoting the creation of great content by people who maybe they wouldn't have started a blog, on their own, but they're happy to go into Medium and start writing some really great articles. I think also what Medium and Subtle are both getting at is this idea of packaging that content up in different ways as well. So, that creates a whole discovery mechanism that makes it interesting to write that content to begin with, as opposed to putting it just out on the World Wide Web and hoping somebody discovers it, right? So I think there's a lot that is happening, a lot of innovation around packaging, presentation, monetization across the board. Those two good examples.
I mean, so what's success going to look like for you for Flipboard? What's your dream of it becoming? Because right now, as excited as publishers might be about it, or as you are, it's still it's so far from being a sustainable type of business for any of us, right? So, what's it going to look like?
Success is when our publishers are psyched, and great content is being able to be subsidized on Flipboard with great, beautiful advertising that readers love. And
But do you think that's a big business?
I think it's a huge business. I think it's a huge business.
I hope it's a huge business.
And I think that
but I don't know if it's going to be, right?
I think so. I'm more optimistic, and I think the publishing industry has reason to be incredibly optimistic about the future. I think its best days are ahead of it. Yes, structurally things are changing. There's disruption happening, but I see progress coming out of that disruption now. And I think publishers have been incredibly willing to experiment, try different things, and I'm seeing the signs that these experiments are starting to work. And it's very, very, I think we're going to have a whole new realm of incredibly great content that's well subsidized, coming in the next 2-3 years easily.
Cool. Well, thank you so much for your time. Everyone, please give him a big round of applause.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah.